There are secrets that God whispers to a woman's heart that were never meant to be shared with the world. Some things are so sacred, so powerful, that speaking them out loud can actually work against your destiny. Today, I'm going to reveal 5 divine secrets that God says you should never tell anyone if you're a woman. Not because you're being secretive, but because you're being strategic. You see, when God places something sacred in your spirit, it's not always meant for public consumption. Sometimes silence is your greatest strength. Sometimes keeping quiet is the very thing that keeps your breakthrough protected. And if you've ever wondered why certain things in your life seem to fall apart after you share them, this message will open your eyes to the spiritual principle of divine discretion. Before we dive deep, let me tell you why this matters. When God entrusts you with revelation, vision, or purpose, that information becomes spiritual currency. And just like you wouldn't throw money into the wind, you shouldn't cast your spiritual treasures before those who cannot discern their value. Matthew 7 verse 6 reminds us not to give what is holy to dogs or cast pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn to attack you. This isn't about being fake or pretending. This is about understanding that some things require protection until they're ready to be revealed. Think of it like a pregnancy. You don't announce it the moment you conceive. You wait until the baby is strong enough to survive outside the womb. The same principle applies to the dreams, visions, and callings that God places in your spirit. Number 1, never tell anyone about your direct conversations with God. When God speaks to you personally, that communication is sacred. It's between you and heaven, and it was never meant to be broadcast to everyone around you. When you share your intimate moments with God, you open yourself up to doubt, mockery, and spiritual interference that can actually block what God is trying to birth through you. Look at Mary, the mother of Jesus. When the angel Gabriel appeared to her with news that she would conceive the Messiah, she didn't run through the streets announcing it. She pondered these things in her heart. She understood that some revelations are so holy, they require incubation and silence before they can manifest in reality. When you tell people about your conversations with God, several dangerous things happen. First, their doubt can contaminate your faith. If they don't understand spiritual communication, their skepticism can plant seeds of uncertainty in your mind. Second, their opinions can muddy the clear waters of what God actually said to you. Suddenly, you're filtering God's voice through human commentary instead of pure divine revelation. Third, you invite spiritual warfare into spaces that should remain protected. The enemy uses other people's mouths to speak confusion into your clarity. He'll use their questions to make you question what you know God spoke directly to your spirit. That's why Jesus often told people not to tell others about the miracles they witnessed. He understood that some divine encounters require a season of silence to fully take root. When God speaks to you about your future, your calling, or your purpose, write it down in your journal. Pray over it, meditate on it. But don't feel obligated to share it with everyone who asks what God is doing in your life. Your relationship with God is personal before it becomes public, and protect the intimacy of that connection by keeping some conversations between you and heaven alone. Number 2, never tell anyone about the specific blessings God promised you. When God makes you a promise about your future, that promise is like a seed that needs to germinate in the soil of your faith before it can grow into manifestation. Speaking about specific blessings too early can actually delay or complicate their arrival in your life. Consider Joseph and his coat of many colors. God gave him dreams about his future leadership and prominence. But when he shared those dreams with his brothers, their jealousy turned into violence. They sold him into slavery, and it took years for God's promises to manifest because Joseph learned the hard way that not everyone can handle hearing about your destiny before it's time. When you tell people about the specific things God promised you, you invite several problems into your life. Jealousy is the first. People who are struggling in their own lives may not be able to celebrate the abundance God has planned for yours. Their envy can create spiritual resistance that makes your blessing path more difficult to walk. The second problem is premature expectations. When you announce that God promised you a house, a husband, a promotion, or a business, people start watching your life like a timeline. They begin to question God's timing when things don't happen as quickly as they expect. Their impatience can pressure you into making moves before God's perfect timing is ready. The third issue is spiritual interference. Not everyone who knows about your promises will pray for their fulfillment. Some people, consciously or unconsciously, may actually pray against what God is trying to do in your life. Their negative energy, spoken words, or inner jealousy can create atmospheric resistance that slows down what heaven is trying to release. Instead of announcing your promises, thank God for them privately. Worship Him for His faithfulness before you see the evidence. Build your faith in the secret place where doubt cannot find you and jealousy cannot touch you. When the blessing manifests, then you can testify about God's goodness. But while it's still in the seed form, protect it with the covering of silence. Number 3, never tell anyone about your spiritual assignments or calling before it's established. When God calls you to a specific ministry, business, or life mission, that calling is like a baby in the womb. It needs time to develop in the safety of God's presence before it can survive the harsh environment of public opinion and criticism. Many women have aborted their callings by sharing them too early with people who didn't have the spiritual maturity to nurture what God was trying to birth. When you tell people about your assignment before it's fully formed, you open the door to discouragement, distraction, and derailment. Think about how people respond when you tell them God called you to start a business, write a book, or launch a ministry. Immediately, they begin asking questions about your qualifications, your resources, your timeline, and your strategy. While some of these questions come from genuine care, others come from doubt disguised as concern. Their questions can plant seeds of insecurity that make you second-guess what you know God clearly showed you. The enemy uses well-meaning people to speak logic into spaces that require faith. He'll use their practical concerns to make you overthink what God meant for you to simply obey. Before you know it, you're more focused on convincing others that your calling is real than you are on developing the calling itself. God gives you assignments that may not make sense to natural thinking. He calls unqualified people to do extraordinary things because His power is made perfect in weakness. But when you share your assignment with people who only understand natural qualifications, their doubt can shipwreck your faith before your calling ever gets off the ground. Keep your assignment between you and God until it begins to take shape. Let your obedience speak louder than your announcements. When people see the fruit of your calling, they won't need you to explain why God chose you. The evidence will speak for itself. But in the beginning stages, protect your assignment with the power of purposeful silence. This is just the beginning of understanding why God values divine discretion in a woman's life. These first 3 secrets reveal how silence can actually be your greatest strength when it comes to protecting what heaven has placed in your heart. Number 4, never tell anyone about your prayers for specific people. When God places someone on your heart to pray for, that intercession is a sacred assignment that requires discretion. Whether you're praying for your future husband, your children, your family members, or even your enemies, these prayer assignments are meant to be carried out in secret. There's something powerful that happens when you pray for people without them knowing. Your prayers become pure intercession, untainted by their expectations or reactions. When you tell someone you're praying for them, especially about specific areas of their life, you change the dynamic of both your prayers and your relationship with them. Consider how Jesus taught us to pray. He said, "When you pray, go into your closet and shut the door. Pray to your Father who sees in secret, and He will reward you openly." This principle applies especially to intercessory prayer. The Father who sees your secret prayers for others will move in ways that public prayers cannot accomplish. When you tell people you're praying for their marriage, their finances, their healing, or their deliverance, several complications arise. First, they may begin to depend on your prayers instead of developing their own relationship with God. Your intercession becomes a crutch rather than a catalyst for their personal spiritual growth. Second, they may start monitoring their life for changes based on your prayers. This creates pressure on both you and them. They begin expecting immediate results, and you begin feeling responsible for outcomes that only God controls. Prayer becomes performance instead of pure communion with heaven. Third, when you announce your prayers for others, you invite their opinions about what you're praying. They may try to direct your intercession based on what they think they need instead of what the Holy Spirit is leading you to pray. This corrupts the purity of Spirit-led intercession. The most powerful intercessors in history prayed in secret. They carried people's names in their hearts without broadcasting their burden. They stood in the gap without seeking recognition or thanks. Their prayers moved heaven because they were motivated by love, not by the desire to be seen as spiritual. When God gives you a burden to pray for someone, carry that assignment with holy discretion. Let your prayers work in the spiritual realm without interference from the natural realm. When breakthrough comes, they may never know it was your intercession that helped birth their miracle. But heaven knows, and that's all that matters. Your prayer closet is not a place for announcements. It's a place for authentic communion with God about the people He's placed on your heart. Keep those assignments sacred by keeping them secret. Number 5, never tell anyone about your seasons of spiritual warfare or testing. When God allows you to walk through seasons of intense spiritual battle, persecution, or testing, these experiences are designed to build your faith and character in private before they become testimonies in public. Sharing the details of your warfare while you're still in the middle of it can actually prolong the battle and invite more opposition into your life. Every chosen woman will face seasons where hell seems to unleash concentrated attacks against her destiny. These aren't random difficulties. They're strategic attempts to derail what God is building in your life. During these seasons, the enemy will try to isolate you, discourage you, and make you feel like you're fighting alone. The natural tendency is to seek support by sharing your struggles with others. While community and prayer support are important, there's a difference between asking for prayer and giving detailed reports about every attack you're facing. When you broadcast the specifics of your warfare, you can actually give the enemy more ammunition to use against you. Here's what happens when you tell everyone about your spiritual battles. First, fear begins to spread. People start worrying about you in ways that create more spiritual static around your situation. Their anxiety doesn't help your faith. It creates more chaos in the spiritual atmosphere around your life. Second, some people may not understand spiritual warfare at all. They'll try to give you natural solutions for supernatural problems. Their advice, though well-intentioned, can distract you from the spiritual strategies God wants to teach you during this season. Third, talking constantly about your battles can keep you focused on the fight instead of the victory. What you give attention to grows stronger in your life. When you rehearse your struggles more than you declare God's faithfulness, you inadvertently extend the season of difficulty. The enemy wants you to feel overwhelmed, outnumbered, and defeated. But when you keep your battles between you and God, you learn to find strength in His presence alone. You discover that He is more than enough to handle whatever hell throws at you. Job understood this principle. When everything fell apart in his life, he didn't spend his time giving detailed reports to everyone about his suffering. He wrestled with God directly. He poured out his heart to heaven without making his pain a public spectacle. Daniel faced intense opposition when he committed to pray 3 times a day despite the king's decree. But he didn't announce his defiance or seek sympathy for his situation. He simply continued his prayer life and trusted God to handle the consequences. When you're in a season of testing, focus your energy on seeking God's face rather than explaining your case to people. Let your warfare drive you deeper into His presence instead of driving you to give detailed reports to others. The lessons you learn in secret will become the testimonies you share in public once the battle is won. Your seasons of testing are designed to prove God's faithfulness in your life, but they can only fulfill their purpose when you allow them to develop your faith privately before they become your testimony publicly. These 5 divine secrets reveal why God values discretion in a woman's spiritual life. When you learn to protect what's sacred, you create space for God to work without interference. Your silence becomes the sanctuary where heaven can move on your behalf. Remember, this isn't about being secretive or deceptive. This is about understanding that some things are too precious to be handled carelessly by people who don't understand their value. Your relationship with God, your promises from heaven, your calling, your prayer assignments, and your seasons of growth all require the protection that only purposeful silence can provide. When you master the art of divine discretion, you'll discover that your quiet seasons become your most powerful seasons. The things you don't say often speak louder than the things you do say. Your protected secrets become the foundation for your public victories. Now that you understand these 5 divine secrets, I want you to take a moment and examine your own life. How many times have you shared something sacred only to watch it crumble under the weight of other people's opinions? How many promises have you announced that seemed to disappear into delay? The power of purposeful silence isn't about hiding from the world. It's about protecting what heaven has entrusted to you until it's strong enough to survive in the open. Your discretion is your defense. Your silence is your strength. And your secrets with God are the seeds of your greatest victories. Remember, not everything needs an announcement. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply trust God and keep quiet until He's ready to reveal what He's been building in secret. If this message convicted your spirit today, drop "I will guard my secrets" in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more spiritual wisdom that will transform how you walk with God.